My boss got me fired, then accidentally sent me his vacation photos with my wife. I've heard people say, when it rains, it pours. But no one ever told me what to do when the flood drowns your career and your marriage at the same time. 2 weeks ago, I got let go from my job of 6 years. The company called it restructuring. Budget cuts. Realignment. You know, all the corporate buzzwords that mean you're screwed. But we're going to smile while we do it. My boss, Mark, Mr. Charisma himself, gave me the speech like he was breaking up with a girlfriend. I fought for you, man. I really did. But HR wouldn't budge. If it were up to me, you'd be staying. I believed him. God help me, I actually believed him. Because I needed to. At 35, with a mortgage, no kids yet, and a wife I thought I knew inside and out, losing that job felt like someone pulled the rug out from under my entire life. But I picked myself up. I updated my resume. I started networking. And most nights, I'd sit beside my wife, Emily, on the couch and vent. While she pretended to listen. At the time, I thought she was just stressed. Distant. Now I know better. It was a Thursday when the email came. Mark had apparently meant to send a Dropbox link to some of his brothers from work. Summer vacation photos from his trip to Mexico. Nothing work-related, just sun, sand, cocktails, and cleavage. Classic Mark. Except he accidentally CC'd me. I didn't even notice it until late that night. Emily had gone to bed early, claiming a headache. I was on my laptop, trying to apply for a few roles before midnight, when I saw the subject line. Mexico Madness. Curious, I clicked. There were 74 photos in the folder. At first, I just skimmed through them. Mark on a beach lounger with a drink. Mark doing shots at a swim-up bar. Mark jet skiing. Then I saw her. Photo 23. Emily. Wearing the same bikini she told me she threw away last year. Sitting on his lap, his hands, well, not where they should be for a coworker's husband. I felt something inside me snap. A cold, clean break. I scrolled back through the photos, trying to convince myself I was wrong. Maybe it was someone who looked like her. Maybe it was photoshopped. Maybe. Then came the selfies. Emily kissing his cheek. Emily in his hotel bed, his arm around her waist. A video. I didn't even open it. I couldn't. I closed the laptop and stared at the wall for an hour. You know what's funny? I didn't even cry. I wanted to. But there was just this buzzing numbness, like my brain had short-circuited. When Emily came into the kitchen the next morning, all smiles and coffee breath, I asked how her girls' trip to Vermont had been. She didn't even flinch. Said it was relaxing. We did yoga every morning. You'd have hated it. I stared at her, wondering how long she'd been lying to my face. I didn't confront her then. Not yet. I needed time. I needed a plan. They lied to my face. They smiled while they gutted my life. Once I had the photos, the lies began to unravel fast. I checked phone records. Hotel bookings. Calendar events that didn't line up. Turns out, they'd been seeing each other for months. Not just once or twice. Mark had even stayed the night in my home when I was away at a tech conference, said he was stopping by to drop off a work laptop. I remember thanking him. He shook my hand. Later that night, my neighbor told me he stayed over. They weren't even subtle about it. Private lunches that weren't on his calendar. Deleted texts on her phone I'd never questioned before. Emily had introduced him to her sister, as a business mentor. He bought her jewelry. I found the receipt in her purse while she was in the shower. Said it was a gift from her friend Julia. Julia doesn't buy gold necklaces. They built a whole alternate reality where I was just the background character, the clueless husband and the expendable employee. If you're still listening, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories that cut deep. Some betrayals can't stay buried. First thing I did was lawyer up. I didn't want a screaming match. I wanted leverage. Turns out, adultery's still legally useful in some divorce courts, especially when combined with wrongful termination. See, here's where things got interesting. Mark didn't just fire me because of budget cuts. He orchestrated the whole thing to get me out of the company, so his little office affair didn't blow up in his face. The whispers I ignored? The awkward silences in meetings? The mysterious way Emily suddenly knew things about our corporate policies? It all made sense now. My lawyer helped me dig up emails. Slack messages. Anything suspicious. And boy, did we find it. A week before my firing, Mark had messaged Emily. He's in the way. This is for us. You couldn't script this better. So I did what any rational man would do. I forwarded the Dropbox link, plus the extracted metadata, to HR. I added screenshots of the messages, my termination paperwork, and a formal complaint detailing workplace misconduct, conflict of interest, and retaliatory firing. Within 72 hours, I got a call. Not from Mark. From his boss. An internal investigation was launched. 2 days later, Mark resigned. Emily tried to explain. I didn't let her. When she came home that night and saw her suitcase on the porch, she just stood there. I can explain, she started. I opened the door just long enough to hand her the divorce papers. Her hand shook as she flipped through them. You ruined us, she whispered. I looked her dead in the eye and said. No. You did. I just made sure it had consequences. The first few weeks were hell. Not gonna sugarcoat it. She cried, she begged. She sent long messages about how it wasn't real and just a mistake. Her parents called me. Her sister said I was being cruel. But I didn't respond. Not once. I moved into a smaller apartment across town. No reminders. No shared furniture. I bought a used couch, slept on an air mattress, and rebuilt my life from scratch. Mark disappeared from LinkedIn for a while. Last I heard, he's doing freelance consulting. No company wants a PR nightmare with ethics violations tied to their name, especially not with a digital footprint that detailed. Emily tried to smear me online. Said I was cold. Controlling. Emotionally unavailable. She told friends I was never really present. But she underestimated one thing. I kept the receipts. People talk. Screenshots circulate. Even her friends started distancing themselves. The truth has a way of leaking out, even when people try to bury it. I'm working again now. Smaller firm, but better culture. I'm not making quite as much, but I'm sleeping better. And every time I open my laptop, I see the wallpaper I added after all this happened. Never ignore your gut. It already knows. About a month after the divorce was finalized, I got a letter in the mail. Not a text. Not an email. A handwritten letter in blue ink, the kind you only send when you know no one wants to hear your voice. It was from Mark's ex-wife. I didn't even know he was married. Turns out, he kept that little detail buried, publicly claimed they'd separated years ago. But according to her, they were still legally married when he went on that Mexico trip with Emily. She found out about the affair the same way I did. Through those vacation photos, forwarded to her by a mutual friend who got caught in the CC storm. But that wasn't the twist. The twist was this. She included a paternity test. It wasn't Mark's first affair. He had a history, but the one that broke her, and made her go digging, was with a junior employee 2 years prior. She had a child. A daughter. And Mark? He wasn't the father. But he'd signed the birth certificate. Paid support. Loved that kid for nearly 3 years. Until the DNA test shattered everything. She ended the letter with a line I'll never forget. Men like him burn everything they touch. I hope you heal faster than I did. I sat there holding that letter, staring at her looping handwriting, thinking about how many lives one man's lies could wreck. Careers. Marriages. Childhoods. And for the first time in a long while. I didn't feel alone. They took my job. They took my wife. But I took back my dignity. It wasn't revenge. It was survival. And to anyone listening to this thinking, that could never happen to me. I hope you're right. But check the CC line next time. You never know what someone might accidentally reveal.